Hello everybody and welcome to another mystery box function challenge. In the purple box there's some mystery math and your challenge is to figure out what that is. Try this out, use the link in the description, and then when you think you've got an answer, come on back and see if we get the same thing. So let's start with a 0. Oh. So 0 gives us not a number, and that's something we see with square root functions. There are probably some other occasions where that can come up. Let's try some more positive numbers. Also not a number. Let's try a 2. Okay, let's go further out. Let's try a 5. Oh my goodness. Oh, let's try a 10. Wow. So it looks like we are getting not a number. In some way the function is not defined for this whole first quadrant here, it seems like. So let's try some negative numbers. Goodness, still not a number. How about a negative 2? Maybe this is somehow a function that's undefined over all values of x. But let's keep going. Let's try a negative 3. Ah. Now we have a value for which the function works. So at negative 3, it's 0. Let's keep going in that negative direction. There, it's 1. How about a negative 5? Ah, okay. That is a nice decimal to get. That 1.142, I recognize that as the square root of 2. So now I think I have a good idea what's going on here. It looks to me like we have a square root function, and we're getting all these not a numbers. We get that when we have square root functions. Usually we get that when we put in negative values. In this case, we get it when we're putting in positive values and a couple of negative values. But here, this looks like the square root of 0, this looks like the square root of 1, and this looks like the square root of 2. So I think what's happened here is the square root function has been flipped or reflected across this y-axis. And the way that happens in an equation is that you have a negative sign under the radical. So we've got a negative x under here. So we're flipping that x value before we take the square root. If the negative sign was outside of the radical, it would just turn it underneath. So instead of looking like this over here in the first quadrant, it would look like that in the fourth quadrant. But here we are in the second quadrant. So that's a negative x. And then it's also been moved over 3 in a negative direction. When you've got a negative x, it means a minus 3 under here. And we can double check to test that out. That's different. If this was a positive x, we would have added 3 to move in that direction. And maybe you can see how that works when we plug in a few numbers. So let's plug in that negative 3. So a negative 3 minus 3. Well, negative 3 is a positive 3 minus 3. That's 0. And that's what we get there. Let's try that negative 4. So a negative 4 minus 3. That's going to be 1. That's what we get there, etc. So let's just see if we can predict one more value. What would give us something under the radical sign? Let's see. We could do 7. We could do a negative 7. A negative 7, then minus 3. So that's a positive 7 minus 3. That should be 4. And then we take the square root of that, should give us 2. So let's put in a negative 7 and hope to get a 2. And I think that's going to clinch it. So negative 7. And there's a 2. So I think we've got this. Let's take a look. Yeah, so this is the square root of negative x minus 3, and we can graph that as well. And it's that classic shape of the square root function. It's just been reflected over that x-axis and moved over 3 more to the left. Well, how did that go for you? Was that confusing? Let me know. Thanks, everybody.